Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Erin Claire Jones here with me on the show. Erin is a leadership coach that specializes in human design, who has helped thousands of individuals and companies and has been featured in publications such as Forbes and Mind Body Green, as well as featured on over 80 podcasts in an effort to help make these tools to help people attain a deeper understanding of their energetic makeup more accessible so that they can reach their highest potential. Super excited to have you here. Hello, Erin. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, this is great. You know, when you reached out, I think maybe you were on Sahara's The Highest Self before, and I was just on that show.
Oh, she's the
and
best.
I think that's how, yeah, she's so cool. And when you reached out and said, hey, this is what I do, I was an immediate yes, because that is this is a topic that I've thought for many years that I would love to explore. And here we are. So yeah, really looking forward to, to diving in and understanding human design a little bit better. I'd like to start though with the very normal, my very cliche opening question. And it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, what's your passion? You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
People. I think that I just love people. I love watching people. I'm curious about people, and I love supporting people. I think that I've always been a people watcher and helper. And that is what I think I'll do for the rest of my life.
Good answer. Good answer. Yeah, it is. It's the most rewarding thing. I always say it on the show. It's like, Gandhi once said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. Mm-hmm. And I love that quote. I probably quoted that more than any other on the show, perhaps. I'd love to see that makes me think I'd love to see a list of all the quotes.
Yeah.
I share so many, but that might be the most one. And I always say the reason that holds true is because there are no others, and when you sort of find your, speaking of Sahara, she just wrote a book on finding your dharmic path. When you find your path and the thing that lights you up the most, it's always going to involve service in some way, shape, or form, I believe, for that reason. So very cool. Congratulations to you for that. And maybe you can give us a little bit of your backstory and how you got here and, just whatever context feels relevant for purposes of the show.
Of course. So I work, as you said, with human design, and I know we'll talk more about what that is, but I live in New York, and I came from a startup background where I was really working with a lot of different companies and kind of marketing, biz dev, all sorts of things. But I was really just interested in the people. I was like, these are amazing ideas and amazing people, but it doesn't really feel like people know how to work together, So I was just observing a lot of dysfunction. And I think simultaneous to that, I was exploring a lot of different modalities just because that's my nature and my curiosity of my certifications and all the things, and I was just curious on my own journey. And when I discovered human design, it was a very serendipitous introduction in 2015 it just landed. I was like, this system is like so cosmic in its origins, but so practical. And I was so basically like on fire almost immediately to make it more accessible to the world. And so I've been doing that for 6 years now. And it's been like a roller coaster journey. The first 3 years, people are like, what is this? This is too weird. This is too crazy. And it really wasn't until 2018 that people are like, I really want to know more. So now, kind of full circle, my work is a lot with individuals, but also a lot with teams, kind of helping teams use human design to build more functional, just like working processes and to be more kind of like just functional as a unit. And I think that, we'll dive into what human design is, but I think that I really had been operating opposite of my own design my entire life. And when I was really introduced to human design, it just like, I was shown another roadmap. I was like shown a way of achieving success, but also just like being myself in a way that would just like generate the most opportunities to me. So it's been an amazing journey, an unexpected one. I don't think I could have really expected that I would have been in this world, but here I am and I'm loving it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start with what the heck is human design, and where did it come from? How does it work? Whatever feels relevant, obviously, to give people I'm sure there's many listeners in this crew that are familiar even with what their human design is. And then there's probably quite a few who are like, I've never heard of this. What are they talking about? So
totally. So human design is a system based on your exact time, date, and place of birth. And the idea is that it gives you your energetic DNA. So what I mean by that is how you're meant to make decisions and work within teams and cultivate relationships and all the things, and it really, more than anything, just gives us permission to be ourselves. It's been around since 1987. It was brought in by somebody named Ra Uhuru, who's no longer alive. And it's a channeled system, meaning that he was like in Ibiza and basically heard a voice one day. And the voice was like, it's time to work. And for 8 days and 8 nights, he really kind of took in and channeled the system and spent the next 20 years building it out. I think because I work with so many skeptics, especially in my more corporate work, I just want to remind people that like, my job is never to convince you of whether or not human design is true. I think the question I really ask people, like, is it helpful? And I find like the answer most often always is just like, oh my God, yes. Like, you're just giving me permission to be myself. And I think the magic of human design is not about telling people stuff they don't know. It's stuff that they so intuitively know, but haven't really ever allowed themselves to fully step into.
I love that answer. It's like, I always say, what this show is all about is reminding people of what they've forgotten. It's like your higher
100%.
Your higher self knows everything I could ever talk about, teach, share, perspectives. It's all there. It's just a matter of like, this sounds true. This feels true. And then with a curious, healthy sense of skepticism, applying any of those perspectives or information that these new data points that have come in this case in human design. Okay, let me apply this. And what kind of results does it give me? 100%. And I always say that results speak the loudest. I don't care if you say you channeled it. I don't care if you can tell me the craziest, wildest shit. And it's like, okay, well, let's see. How does it feel? And if I apply it, what results does it get? And that is, I'm with you 111% on that.
I love that so much. And I think that like, I've been always curious about all the different things. And I think that like, I find there's a lot of information out there and like the information is so fun. It's amazing learning about ourselves. But I think what drew me to human design was that how actionable and tactical and practical it was, because I was like, it's amazing to learn all these things, but if I like, don't know what to do with them and how to apply them, then it's just like, it's going to drop out of my mind the next day. And so like, I'm excited to talk about your design because even your experience of receiving my message and being like, yep, it's like, so your design, because you're like meant to be driven by your gut in the moment. And it's just like these like small kind of examples of just like daily, just what we can do to actually integrate into our day-to-day to actually just find more alignment in our lives. And I think for me, that's exactly what human design does.
Cool. Well, so now we have an idea of how it came through. So it's a channeled system, I suppose you would say. And, I had someone on, it makes me instantly think of someone I had on a while back many years ago who I absolutely love, Richard Rudd.
Oh yeah.
Who
one of the first
the Gene Keys.
Yeah. And Gene Keys.
Yeah, right. And it's like human design and I Ching are like,
exactly,
part of his, I guess inspiration and help. Yeah. So
he's the best.
But I know with him,
he's
so cool. One of my favorites.
And
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys, by the way, you want to go and check if you, I don't have the episode number in front of me, but if you go to positivehead.com, you can search Richard Rudd, RUDD, and hear all about his journey and how it was like full on channeled. You know, he was in his early 20s and he started doing some technique to, if I recall, this is years ago when I interviewed him, but some technique with the putting his tongue on the roof of his mouth and this whole like yogic practice he was doing.
Wow.
And all of a sudden his body like lit up like he made an electric circuit or something. And next thing he knows, he wakes up the next morning and he's got like full downloads, and it leads him on this whole adventure, which leads to, you know, ultimately the gene keys coming through, and then he's unpacking all this over 30 years, you know? So, you know, I find with channeled information, I definitely, from exploring it for many years now, am a believer, because some of my favorite teachers are like claiming like, hey, this is a channeled experience. And I'm like, okay, let me look at the information and how inspired it is and poetic. And I'm just like, this is incredible information that's coming through you, you know? And so I'm definitely feel like it's the real deal. So,
and it's also like my experience with human design is that like it really just reveals like all the like energetics underneath the surface and all like the unconscious parts of ourselves that are going to be really hard for us to like access by like observing people. Like it just kind of gives us this layer that we haven't really ever had access to before. So I so feel that.
Yeah. So maybe you could give us a, you know, high level overview of the different designs and, you know, whatever feels right to share to kind of start painting the picture of how this thing works.
Yeah. So there are like a bajillion different configurations, but at the highest level in human design, there are 5 different types. And the type is really around how you're designed to best use your energy. And my just quick reminder is that, like, say you and your partner are the same type, or you and your colleague, this doesn't mean you have the same design. You know, this is just like the first distinction. It's like your sun sign in astrology, you know?
It's sun sign, right,
exactly.
right.
But it gets so much more kind of nuanced and specific from there. So high level, there are generators, manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. You are a generator. Have you dug into your design before, like deeply? Or
all I know is I'm a generator. And what's funny about this, I'll tell a funny story just into my own psyche. I always loved like everything that I've ever found out I'm like, yeah, that's the coolest. I'm a Leo. Oh, I'm a 11 in numerology, like life path, you know, master number. Oh, in destiny cards, I'm a king of hearts, the one that rules with love, the most loving of all 52 possibilities. And then I get to human design. I'm a generator. I'm like, what? I'm not even a manifesting generator? Like, that just sounds like boring and normal, you know? And so I had to like laugh at myself when I think back out my initial sort of reaction. And then someone told me a little bit more about it at some point. And then, you know, I'm like, okay, but I still am like pretty green with my understanding of what it means to be a generator. Totally. Other than my knee-jerk reaction is, that doesn't sound like the best.
I know. Am I not a unique? Yeah. I love that story because I think that I've heard that before from all the different types. Like, I'm a projector. I want to be a generator. We just like, there's all this design envy. So I think that like, it's a good reminder that we, you know, that we like, that we all need each other. And for me, I'm so biased towards generators because my partner's one. So I'm just like, they're like, for me, like they're the most magnetic people to be around. So, you know, there's such advantages to each one. So generators and manifesting generators, I'll talk about them together then separate, are really kind of like the doers, the builders, the creators, the ones that really have the energy and the life force to kind of build and create and bring things to life. The most important thing in the world is that you are so deeply satisfied by what you're doing and how you're spending your time. If you're lit up by like your community and your work and your relationships, like it is like so magnetic, you basically like pull everything to you, and like people cannot help but want to be around you. You know, one of the biggest lessons for generators is just boundaries. Like, because you've got such amazing vitality and energy and life force, people want it. They want to take advantage of it and like want you to be part of the things. And so for you, you know, one of your biggest lessons, or for all generators and manifesting generators, is that like when you're lit up and satisfied and you're excited, like 100% go for it. But if you're doing a thing just because you think you should, because somebody asked, it will drain your battery so quickly. So you're really at your best when you really let your own desires guide the way and not like kind of let other people's needs dominate. Make sense?
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So So the difference between manifesting generators and generators is that manifesting generators are often kind of like very multi-passionate by nature, and they often love having their energy in a lot of things at once. They often like bring ideas to life very quickly, but in doing so, they can skip a few steps along the way. So it's good to have like the right support around them. And yeah, and they're just like, they're not really meant to be fit in one box or be any very linear at all. And so often they've been made to feel like too much, but they often need that level of kind of stimulation to be excited and be successful. For generators, also kind of that pure creative doing energy, but it's more about mastery, like going really deep into things. And then when it's time, moving on. Like if you're a generator and you're like, I love having my energy in a lot of things at once, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but I would just make sure that you really feel like you have the energy for each of those things at that moment. It might be like, this is super exciting, but maybe like 6 months down the road. And the
Yeah.
last piece that I'd share about both those types is that your strategy, which every type will have a strategy, which is how you're kind of meant to create opportunities for yourself. Your strategy is magnetism. You're not really meant to chase after anything. Life is meant to come to you, and your work is to keep your awareness open and see what shows up. And when something shows up and lights up your gut, then it's like, go for it, but it's kind of waiting for that clear gut response to signal where you need to put your energy. And it's not about coming up with ideas out of thin air. It's about kind of waiting for life to come to you and for you to have a natural response to it.
I love that. So I had my initial reaction of, okay, I just decided that wasn't the best thing to be, even though I didn't know anything about it. It's like, hold on, I'm at least a manifester because, I do a lot of things and think I'm, very creative. And but as I learned that really made sense to me, that, allowing life to come to you and then responding. And I started thinking even about a lot of the like even business wise, for example, it's like, oh, I went into this particular business, and by getting input from, I'm seeing how this particular business works and where all the holes are, and here's how I can make it better. It's like, so I looked back and I'm like, oh wow, I'm taking other input and then I figure out how to do it better or different or my own way. And so it was interesting as I started to analyze that. It's like, oh, I respond to input, and then it's like, as soon as you give me something, I'm like, oh yeah, that. And what if you did this? And what if you did that? And what if and then it's just like, go.
100%.
So yeah, I think that made total sense as I got past my initial reaction.
And it's good for the people around you to know that, so they can give you things to respond to, not being like, what do you think we should do about this? Or like a really open-ended thing, like offering you options, things to be like, oh, that feels good. Oh, that doesn't, is actually such a powerful way of kind of working and collaborating with you, and you have an aspect in your design, which is beyond being a generator, but like you've got this like capacity to be inspired by like everything, which is probably what makes you like so good in this position where there's just like a curiosity and like anything can spark your interest. So again, for you, it's learning how to balance like, while I have such capacity for inspiration, I'm not actually available for it all. So let my gut be the tool to let me know where I actually need to put my energy so that I don't feel kind of scattered with all the possibilities.
Biggest challenge for me. You nailed it. Like, it's like, I can do anything. I can't do everything. And sometimes that's it. It's like, I'm so lit up by so many things. And then I'm like, and so in my heart and excitable. And I'm like, yes, yeah, we'll do that. And I'm like, I just committed to a 3-year project that when am I going to sleep again? And so
totally.
Yeah, it's an important lesson for me and quite honestly, Erin, it's at times, I know there was a book years ago that talked about that one thing and the focus, and you even mentioned that. And I'm like, I'm sitting over here going, oh gosh, I'm screwed. Like I literally, I've gotten better about, making it a few things, but I definitely am a juggler and it can be a lot to, and so I've definitely questioned myself before. It's like, am I just like missing the boat by focusing on multiple things when it should just be focusing in one direction?
Do you feel like it works for you?
I find it challenging.
Yeah.
It does. I think I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
I've gotten better at like discerning and, limiting.
Yeah. And again, like, it doesn't mean that like you're a generator, you've got to like do the same thing your entire life at all. It means that more just like there's a desire to like really go deep and master and explore, and maybe it's like, I'm going to go deep in this today and then like go deep in this other thing tomorrow, but I think it is kind of just like allowing that process.
So maybe you can share a few of the other
Yes, let's talk about the other
types
types.
and how they work. Yeah.
So then we've got projectors. So I know you said Sahara, you were on her podcast, and I think she was on this one. She's also a projector. I'm also a projector. And projectors are
Oh,
really
okay.
projectors are really here to be the leaders, the guides, the advisors, the teachers, not here to do all the doing. So projectors, our
Mhm.
energy tends to really operate in like ebbs and flows of just like creative bursts and then rest and creative bursts and then rest. But like if we get lost trying to keep up with all the like generators and manifesting generators around us, we're probably going to be like super disappointed, which I basically had spent my entire life trying to do before I discovered human design. Projectors,
Wow.
yeah, which was like such a wild way to be like, oh, there's another way to work and there's another way to be successful and feel good. And
Mm.
so, projectors' gift is really in recognizing and seeing people and being such amazing guides for other people, whether that's in the form of a teacher, a therapist, a coach. Projectors tend to love system, that they love anything that kind of helps us better understand people and how they work. Human design has been that for me, but Sahara is another great example of like creating our own system, really exploring our Ayurveda. Like we just love digging deep and like letting it inform how we understand people and how to really help and kind of guide them. So I would say most important pieces for projectors is, are you really honoring the ebbs and flows of your energy, or are you trying to keep up and deriving your worth in how much you do? And secondly, where do you feel like the most recognized and invited in to kind of share who you are? Our strategy as projectors is waiting for a sense of like invitation and recognition, like making sure the people that we're working with and dating like really see us, really recognize us, really invite us in, and so not chasing after and trying to make things happen. And I think as an entrepreneur, initially I was like, this feels so limiting because like, how are we supposed to build a business doing that? And I've learned that my biggest
Yeah.
job as a projector is to just like make myself visible, just like share who I am and put myself out into the world and like let the right people kind of resonate and respond to me. Make sense?
Yeah. Makes total sense.
And then we've got manifestors. Manifestors are the initiators, the ones that are really here to kind of get things started, get the ball rolling, not always here to do all the doing themselves, but often just to kind of get something off the ground. Most important for manifestors is feeling a sense of freedom and autonomy and control. They're not really here to be told what to do or managed or guided in any way. They're very much here to do things on their own terms and in their own way. And they're often pretty comfortable with solitude and being left alone to do what they please. And their strategy is around initiating. So they don't often need that same response. Like they might just have an internal urge and go after it. And the second part of their strategy is around informing. And it basically just means once they've made a decision to do something, keeping the people around them in the loop, because their energy is naturally impactful. So they don't inform, people can really kind of resist or question it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the one that I felt such resonance with,
Yeah.
as someone who's always started so many things and, founding of things that go on to be way bigger than me. And, so that's the thing that I felt a lot of resonance with that sort of description,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also have the generator energy for sure.
Right.
So no question about that. So that's why, when my initial knee jerk was like, oh, I'm not a manifesting generator,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And manifestors often, they don't have the same kind of sustained energy to create. It's really around, it's just like ebbs and flows as well. It's like creative bursts, whereas for you, it might be a little bit more sustained. And one thing I will add to
For sure.
for you is that you've got and this is the deeper layer of your design, but you've got the gate or the quality of beginnings, which means that like your gift is like starting, you know what I mean? Not always completing, like just like that energy at the beginning. And so for you, it is around like operating in response and perhaps like getting the thing started and then moving on, you know?
Sure.
And so like you can start to see when you look at that's why I say type is the first piece, is when you kind of get into the deeper layers, you're like, oh, I see where this is all kind of showing up.
That makes sense.
Okay. And then we've got reflectors, the last type, 1% of the population, so much more rare. And these people are really just incredibly sensitive. And you're actually incredibly sensitive too, but it's kind of a hallmark of this type, sensitive to their physical environment and their physical space. When they're in the right space, they really kind of like find the right flow, attracting the right people, the right opportunities. When they're in an office that doesn't feel good, a home that doesn't feel good, they really kind of feel that very intensely in their own body. So being such ruthless curators of who and where they're spending time, because they're magnifying all that energy. Also reflectors' gift, and you might resonate with this too, is in their fluidity. They're not really meant to be just one thing. Like they might show up in really different ways around different people at different times. And so their work is to not figure out who they are, but just embrace whatever feels authentic in that moment. And in the context of business, we call these people evaluators, because they really just have such a unique, objective perspective and way of seeing things. So it's really important for them to kind of be in spaces where they feel really, just invited in and recognized for their perspective and not how much they can do. Makes sense.
I instantly think of like, I just realized I've never looked up my brothers. And so I'm going to do that sometime soon, because he's the most sensitive person I've ever known. And so I wonder if he's a reflector. You said 1%, huh?
1%. And we're all sensitive in really different ways. You know what I mean? Like I would say
Yeah,
actually
sure.
looking at
Right.
your design, there's a lot of areas in which you're going to feel other people's stuff. And like, it's just like, those are a lot of areas for you to learn. But yes, it's so, and even like the, he might be a projector, which is like taking in other people's energy very deeply and especially yours. So again, it's such a interesting exploration, especially in family dynamics, in terms of just like understanding like, wow, because basically very quickly, there are areas in our design in which we take in other people's energy, and there are areas in our design where we project it out. And so really useful to understand in relationships, like where are you taking in their emotions or projecting your opinions or whatever that thing is, so you can understand the impact you're having on each other.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one big difference I would say is like I'm really good at letting whatever flow through me and come out, and he like will internalize. Yeah, and so yeah, internalizing can be, and holding on to it can be detrimental if you're not careful, and especially if you're so sensitive,
and especially if it's not yours. Like you're a super super empath in your design, so you're probably super sensitive to where people are and what they're feeling, but the work is to like let it move through you as quickly as it comes in, rather than be like, oh, what is this? Is it my responsibility? Should I fix it? Should I say something to them? It's like, wow, this person's going through a thing, noted, but also kind of letting yourself be a more neutral observer rather than like a really involved fixer.
Yeah, right. Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. The concept for the book initially came to me in a dream and has been followed by a next level amount of synchronicity, confirming for me that the information in the book is pertinent to get to the world at this moment in our collective evolution. In the book, I share the 8 keys to manifesting abundance that I've personally discovered over 25 years of trial, error, and deep exploration, including one golden key that ultimately ties them all together. I think most of you will agree with me that talk is a bit cheap, especially these days, and results speak the loudest of all. Well, these keys have led me to manifesting incredible results, such as an Inc. fastest growing private company, uncanny health, incredible relationships, and success with this podcast. However, I'm not any more special than you, and anyone can apply this information to achieve incredible results in their own life. I also believe waking up our planet by sharing these keys to abundance is the quickest way to help us to transition our home into the planet of paradise it is destined to become. Which is why I'd like to gift the book to you at goldenkey.gift when you use the golden key code POSITIVEHEAD. I would also like to invite you to create your own unique golden key code so you in turn can gift the book to others, as well as invite you to participate in a unique abundance manifestation game with me and the other readers that is outlined in detail at the end of the book and on the website, where readers are also going to share the inspiring results of their abundance manifestation experiments. Lastly, I'm going to practice what I preach by sharing 50% of the abundance generated from the golden game and sale of the other golden goodies on the website with you and all the other readers. So if you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. Also, if you end up loving and appreciating your gifted copy of the book, please take a moment to go to Amazon and give it a review, which will greatly help me reach and unlock more hearts with the golden key. Let's see, where should we take it from here? What do you feel would be the most exciting to share pertaining to this work and with the people listening?
Yeah, I think that, so one, there are like endless layers in human design, but I would say 2 of the most important pieces that might be useful to go into is something called the inner authority and potentially something called the profile. And so if you're open to that, I'd say start with the inner authority, because it basically is around how we're meant to make decisions. And when we get back to that kind of practical element, we're making decisions every day. So it's useful to kind of really understand what that unique path is for us. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, I was just saying this with someone yesterday. I was talking about, how I I've gotten to a point where I try and limit as many decision points as possible. I remember hearing Mark Zuckerberg talk about this a long time ago. Like, he just wears the same thing every day because it's one less decision he has to make. And each decision takes energy. It takes, you're spending your life force. And, especially as a serial entrepreneur my whole life, it's just like in beginnings, always for me. And then handing it off maybe at some point, when it gets beyond that. But it's just like decision point. So I really, when you say like learning how to, make those decisions as efficiently as possible is what I just kind of heard there.
Yes.
Like, yes, that is like, from personal experience, I found to be one of the most important things we can do to manage our energetic.
Totally. 100%, and I think a lot of us get lost in like trying to create a pro-con list and rationalize and make sense of decisions. And like, actually none of us are meant to do that. And so it's just useful to know. So you're what we call a sacral decision maker, or sacral authority. And it basically means that you're designed to trust your gut response in the moment. For you, as soon as you get that visceral, full-bodied yes, you're meant to move forward. Your mind might get in the way and be like, but what happens about this? And like, what about this? And the work is to just trust it. And if you're not getting a full-body gut response, it either means it is not the right thing or it's not the right time yet. So it might just be like, doesn't feel right. And then a week later, you're like, I'm in, So it's basically a tool to not only help you know where to put your energy, but when to put it there. And the gut is never a thing that can be rationalized. So if you find yourself giving a reason for a decision, like, I really think I should keep doing this because of not your gut. Your gut is like, feels right, doesn't, don't know why, we'll find out why later, And there's so much talk out there of like, follow your gut, listen to your gut. Not all of us have that as our inner authority. But for you, it's
interesting.
Yeah, I don't, I've never really connected to that. And I have intuitions for sure. But I think for you, it's just the truth in the now. And I think the last piece I would share about this is that often people with a sacral authority respond really well to very specific questions. So I kind of touched on this earlier, but if I was like going out to dinner with you, instead of being like, where do you want to go for dinner? I would be like, do you want to go here or here? Instead of being like, what do you want to do today? Be like, do you want to go to the water or go here? Like, because you have such a capacity to like think through all the possibilities and see things from every single side. If I ask you an open-ended question, it might get you straight into your head. But if I ask you that specific question, it's going to drop you straight into like, yep, nope. You know what I mean? So it's a way of kind of accessing your truth actually so much more quickly.
Cool.
Does that resonate with you?
That's great. Yeah, that's got to be so useful to know, like, referencing like your partner or whatever. It's like understanding how they operate.
100%.
Then instantly it's like, oh, I know the best way to approach. It's almost like love languages or something, right?
Exactly. And like your team, my partner's a sacral authority like you. And so it's just such a tangible example I have. It's like, what do you want to eat for dinner? He's like, not a clue. And it's not that he doesn't know. It's just because I haven't actually communicated in the proper way to help him access like, I do want that and I don't want that, So it's so transformational in relationships. There are people called emotional authorities. So I'm an emotional authority, and this is true this is possible for every type, but reflectors. And basically for emotional authorities, you're not really meant to make decisions in the moment. Clarity comes with time. The best thing that you can do is sleep on it and just like pause and give yourself some space, because like it's probably going to shift a little bit. Whereas you have that clarity available for you in the moment. For me, it comes like once I give myself some time to like really feel into it. And so, encouraging these people to like sleep on things. And it doesn't mean that your initial instinct is like wrong. It just means that you need like a little bit more time to verify it, because for me, when I like commit on emotional high, I'm like, I'm yes to everything. And then like, I regret it all the next day, so just being slower in that process. And again, this is really useful in partnership, whereas one person might have instantaneous clarity available for them. The other person might need a little bit more time. Make sense?
Very interesting. What an interesting distinction, to understand.
Yes.
It's like two totally different ways of approaching something. But I really resonate with my approach. It's like, I've always said, I have so many people on the show. It's like, oh, I'm clairvoyant. I'm this, all these magical gifts. And it's like, if I have anything, it's claircognizance. It's that clear knowing, like
100%. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like you've also got just weirdly, there's like a thing called cognition in human design, and your cognition is feeling. It is just like, there's just like a feel, you know, that you have. And so yeah, that's your gut as well. So there's just like a lot of sensitivity there, and it's just like, it's giving you truth in the moment.
Cool.
Some of the other examples of different authorities, there are some people called splenic. So Sahara is a good example of that. And splenic authorities are basically meant to trust their intuition in the moment, different than the gut response. Gut is like this visceral feeling. It's like a yes or no in response. Intuition is like a quiet knowing that kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's just like this whisper, this resonance, these tingles, these feels. It's super spontaneous. So whereas I would recommend emotional people like me, like sleep on it and give it a beat, whereas to Sahara, I'd be like, the moment you get it, go for it. You know what I mean? No need to wait.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of that spontaneous knowing. There are some people that are ego decision makers, which is all about kind of trusting what their heart is in, what they desire, what they have the willpower for. Like when their heart is in it, they can do anything, but they've got to really make sure that like they feel really taken care of by the decision, and like the deal is like really good enough for them. Like they have to be kind of like healthily selfish in what they commit their energy to. There are self-projected decision makers, which are basically people that are meant to talk things out, and their truth comes when they say it out loud. So again, really useful to know that about like a partner or friend. So it's like, let me ask them questions, because like it's not about me giving them an answer, but I can pull it out of them, you know?
Right.
There are two more mental decision makers, which are basically also meant to talk things out, but in a lot of different spaces. This is possible for projectors. It's also known as environmental. And finally, there are lunar decision makers, which are reflectors. And they're designed to give themselves a full 28 to 30 days before they make a big decision. I know that it is not always feasible to give yourself that time, but I think for them, it's the knowing that like they move at a different timeline at a different pace than most people. So giving them that space to kind of sample a decision from so many different angles to really kind of drop into whether or not it's right for them or not.
Wow. There's a lot of variations there.
A lot of variations, you know, a lot of possibilities. And again, it's just so useful to like be like, oh, wow, I make decisions really different than the people around me. You know, the majority of people are going to be in the sacral category or the emotional category or the splenic. It kind of gets more and more rare as we move up.
Got it.
Yes.
Interesting.
But you can start to see how useful it is not only to understand yours, but the people around you, so you can really honor them in that.
Absolutely.
Did you want to hear about the profile piece? Oh, go ahead.
I would love to hear about the profile piece. Quick question. Have you seen it? You know, I'm assuming you have looked at more charts than most. Do you ever see it where it's like you're kind of dumbfounded or like confused because they seem to operate differently than what their chart says? Or has your experience shown you that it's almost always accurate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that I expected early on, especially because I've always been drawn to working with people that are like super skeptical and like, you know, and making it accessible to them. And I think that I expected a bit more resistance of just like, whoa, I don't know if that's me. Like, I really haven't received that. And I worked with like 10,000 people, you know, and I think it's like more than anything, they're like, yeah, it doesn't mean they're living it. You know what I mean? Like I was making decisions super spontaneously, but it became so clear to me when I was introduced to this that I was like, those have never been the right decisions. I have always regretted them. There's like another way. So I think it often does, it resonates on a very cellular level for people where they maybe have been living opposite of it, but this often kind of like dials them into what works best. So I haven't, you know, I had one story years ago. It wasn't even a client, it was a friend, and I was sharing his design with him. He's like, I don't want to be that. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, how does it feel to be the way that you are, to operate in the way that you are, which is obviously opposite of your design? He's like, it's not going well. I was like, I mean, I don't have to tell you, like, if you're like not open to like shifting and growing and walking a different path, I'm like, I can't really support you here. So I haven't found much resistance in that. But again, I think that the way that I try to deliver the knowledge is very much like, take it or leave it. Like, let it be a tool that empowers you. But if it feels limiting or doesn't support you, then let it go, you know, but it's really tends to make sense in a very deep way in the people that I've worked with.
Cool.
Okay. Profile. You want to hear about yours?
No, I'm not interested at all.
We don't like learning about ourselves, right?
No, no one wants to hear about themselves. You know.
So our profile is basically around how we're designed to best manifest our purpose. And there are 12 different configurations. We don't have to go through all those, but I think just to give you a taste, you know, they're made up of like 6 different numbers. So you're what we call a 4-6 profile. And so it basically means that you're meant to be like particularly influential, like in your community, in your network, in your friends, and the people that you know. Like community is actually a very essential part of your design. And it like your community is a well of opportunity for you. And so I think just like
Mm.
always nourishing and activating your relationships and just seeing them as like the things that kind of like connect you to what's next and open up new doors for you. And the other part of your profile is that you carry this very kind of like role model teacher energy, people that are kind of like a little bit ahead of their time and like can see things in a really powerful, objective, optimistic way. And the last piece I'd share about that piece is just like often these people live their life in 3 phases, where the first 30 years is like a lot of trial and error and bumping into things and making mistakes and just like throwing things against the wall and just like gathering data. And like 30 to 50 is a time of like more processing and integrating and learning and like letting kind of more people naturally see you for kind of like the wise perspective that you are. And you're actually meant to hit your prime when you turn 50. And this does not mean that there's
Mm.
anything to wait for. It just means that it's like meant to keep getting better and better and better. And you become such a role model because you just like really embody authenticity in such a beautiful way and become like a living example of it, where being around you kind of inspires that in other people as well.
Oh,
How does
yay. I
that feel
love
for
that.
you?
That feels great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You got me right with the first 30. There's plenty of bumping into things.
totally. Yes. And
But yeah, it definitely resonates.
and I had the same thing in my design. I'm a 6'2", so I share that thing. And like the first 30 years, I was like, I've got to figure it all out and make these big commitments. But then I would like make them and move away because it was just like I was in experimental phase. So I think it's nice to know that about ourselves. We kind of give ourselves permission to like bump into as many things as we can and give ourselves like as many things to learn from as we grow older.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And just like some quick examples of like other ones that people might find, like some people are like investigators. They've got to go so deep into all the details, like really here to be like an expert and authority. Like some people like me are very hermity. We like being on our own energy, but also just like meant to like lean into the things that come easy. Like there's some people that have that kind of like trial and error, learning as much as they possibly can throughout their entire life, like here to make mistakes and learn from them. So many kind of different configurations here, but it really is, again, it gives us just permission to like operate in different ways. Like my partner is very much about like details, understand how things work. And I'm just like, it works, I'm good. And like, I think understanding that difference has been really useful rather than be like, why are we not more similar here? Like actually we're really different and we bring really different things to the process.
Cool.
Yes.
So those profiles, I mean, how many, is there just like a ton of variations there or?
Profiles, there are just 12. But they're made up
Okay.
of 6 different numbers. So it's going to be like, you could be like a 4-6 or 1-3 or a 2-4. So just like each number carries a different meaning. So like, the 1 is the investigator, the 2 is the hermit, the natural, the 3 is like the experimenter, bumping into things, making mistakes. The 4 for you is like the community, influential networker. The 5 is very much like the problem solver and fixer. And the 6 is really kind of like the role model, teacher, authority. I think the hard is the 4-6 too, but I think that, so it's really, and again, the configurations will mean different things, but I think it really just helps us dial in to like how to do things in a way that works for us. Like I would say for you, like even around like dating or business, like it's good for you to like work with people that you're friends with, to like date somebody that you were friends with first, to like meet somebody through a friend rather than like on an app, like it kind of like that is how opportunities come, whether it's business, romantic, and beyond.
100%.
You feel that?
That's my life. Yeah.
Do you want me to share one more piece?
I suppose.
You don't really want to know. Yeah.
I'll keep acting like I'm not interested because you can tell this is just not fun at all. Yes, please.
It's so fun learning about ourselves. And again, that's why I think it's been so nice working with people that are a little bit more skeptical and like unsure, because I think that like there's a real curiosity, and there's just like, tell me about myself, and if it resonates, it can be really exciting and fun and expansive. So there are areas in our design, I mentioned this briefly earlier, where we're the most kind of like sensitive to other people's energy. And these are both the areas where we can actually get the most taken off track because we're getting like overwhelmed with stuff that's not ours, but also where we can like really just become the most wise and where we're here to learn. And so some of the big areas for you, you've got what we call an open emotional center. I mentioned this briefly before, in that you really are hyper empathic and sensitive to other people's feelings. But the work is to kind of like not take those things on as your own and let them like move through you as quickly as they came, and just be like really wise about emotions without personalizing other people's stuff. And honestly, sometimes like treating your feelings as like intel into the world around you, rather than be like, is this all mine? What's going on here? It's more just like, oh, what's going on in the world? I'm feeling this. Do you feel that sensitivity?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been a huge lesson for me, is like, okay, I'm feeling this and not allowing it to trigger my own nervous system in some way. I mean,
Exactly.
actually, we talked about this early on. Actually, we just randomly talked about this because that's been a big part of my work is,
Mm,
I'm so sensitive to energy. It's like, and especially in younger years, you could, someone's energy could come in with something and all of a sudden I'm like from 0 to 100, and they're like, whoa, what just happened? Like,
totally.
and it's just like learning to like allow it to pass through. It's not, not take it on and feel it so intensely.
Yeah, and like letting it be a gift, not like a thing that just overwhelms. And just to give you context, like there are 9 different energy centers in human design, and of the 9, you got 7 open. So most of your design
Wow.
is wide open to the world around you, which actually is like an incredible capacity to be wise and feel all the things. But I think it requires that lesson that you're in, which is just like, but letting it go and not personalizing it and kind of embracing the fluidity of it all. Another one that oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, have you ever seen anyone that has all 9 open?
So reflectors have all 9 open. That's what makes a reflector a reflector.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is so interesting. And then you can also have all 9 defined, and that is going to either be a generator or a manifesting generator. Um,
Interesting.
but for you, like, similar, I talked about the reflector piece. I'm curious whether this resonates for you. Like, you've got this really open identity center in your design, which means that you are naturally meant to have a very fluid way of expressing yourself. You might express yourself differently around different people and different environments at different times in your life. And so I would say the biggest shadow for you is trying to figure out who you are. It's like, I would just like figure out the
Mm.
one thing that I am. I've got to find like the perfect partner, the perfect place to live. And for you, it's very much like, I'm all the things. I'm going to embrace whatever feels like authentic and correct for me in the moment. But the minute it no longer feels like me, I'm going to keep moving and emerging and evolving because like your gift
Yep.
is your fluidity and not your consistency. Do you feel
Yeah.
that?
Absolutely. I absolutely feel that. Yeah. It's, I've always, whenever someone puts me in any kind of box, I just like freak out.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can be this. I can be an astronaut too. I can, I can do.
Totally.
Yeah. I've always just been so just open in general. So I see limitations that people put and I'm like, hold on, why are you putting that limitation on yourself? Why are you telling that story? Oh, because someone else told you that you should? Oh, well, how did that work out for them? Oh,
Totally.
wow. Let me look at them. Oh, no, thank you. I'm good. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Exactly. And I think that it really, and some people are meant to be more like, this is who I am and it can shift, but often that's not really expressed authentically. They might try to kind of take on other people's ideas. So, and one other thing I would just add for you there is that you're somebody who's incredibly sensitive to your physical space. So the thing to like do to ensure you're heading in the right direction and attracting the right people and community is planting yourself in spaces that really feel good and making sure the spaces you're in feel amazing, and if like a hotel doesn't feel good, moving. If a coffee shop doesn't feel good, leaving, like making sure your city feels good, your home, all of that. I feel like you do that very
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
That's a big part of my journey is
Yeah.
I am essentially running a communal space.
Right.
And it's upwards of 15 people at a time sometimes, and I'm sort of the founding person and steward of the spaceship, as I like to call it, and it's really been an interesting juggling act because I am so sensitive to my space and in the vibe and the energy and the lighting and and then you have people come in who are like, it's like, how do I find the right fit? And I find myself sometimes spending a lot of time in just I'm in my room is sort of like a studio in the, it's almost like a studio apartment. And so I spend a lot of time there because it's like, okay, I 100% control this. Yes, everything in the house I set up initially, it's all kind of my stuff. And
Yeah.
however, there's just other people's ideas and energies that, and that's been a really interesting growth edge for me to navigate.
And I think having that own space that you can return to, that it's like, this is the stuff that I've created entirely, is really healthy, because like obviously
Yeah.
you can't control it all, but again, you're going to be really sensitive. Whereas somebody might be like, whatever, it doesn't matter that that couch is that way or that thing
Yep.
is there. You're like, whoa,
Yep.
I feel it, So it's just like
Yep.
the quality
Totally.
of the space impacts your well-being so deeply. And then we talked briefly about that kind of inspiration piece, but just to remind you of it again, like one of the areas, if you look at your chart, you'll see just like the opening, the top is just wide open. It basically just means that you are receiving so many inspirations, so many ideas. Like your gift is seeing ideas from every possible angle. And so like the biggest shadow for you is like trying to pursue all the ideas that come, feeling super scattered, or even trying to be certain. It's like, I've got to like figure out the one way that I see it. Like your gift is like, I can see it in every possible way. I just know that I'm not here to pursue all the ideas. I'm going to really trust my gut to know which ones are worth pursuing. And I
Yeah.
often recommend for these people just having like very simple to-do lists to keep them on track. Like you probably would not thrive with like a lot of structure, but I think having like some priorities so that you can end the day and be like, I feel satisfied by what I created, which is
Yep.
a real like good signal for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Super, super cool to get the insight. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to know myself a little better. And I know there's people out there, of course, listening who are hearing all this and like are already,
I know.
How do I find out more about my own human design? So perhaps that would be unless there's other like key elements to share.
No, that's good.
Then, perhaps you can, talk a little bit about how people can figure it out
Yeah.
and learn more themselves.
Yes, of course. So there's endless layers, but again, it's more around the integration of the information and not just like learning more and more and more and more. So I think that like those are really good pieces to start with. If you'd like to look up your design, there are lots of places online, but you could go to Erin Claire Jones, Claire with an e.com/lookup. And I have lots of ways for you to dig in. The most accessible offering, which we're doing a discount code for, is something called the Blueprint, which is a 30+ page written guide to your unique design. I make each of them, and the idea is to really just make the information as practical and accessible and useful as possible so that you can kind of keep returning to it to really help you find more alignment. So that's my website, and the discount code is positive head. Yeah, is that what we're doing?
Cool.
Cool. And then
Yep.
I do individual sessions, private sessions, team sessions. I have a big group workshop coming up. So all that stuff is on my on my website, and also my Instagram. I share a lot there, Erin Claire Jones.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's see here. Well, one of the things that I would love to hear from you, I gotta think, because this is such a, it's such an energetic field that you have chosen to walk down, that you've seen some pretty cool stories along the way. And I love hearing stories and the listeners love hearing stories of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story, even anything that's on your journey with human design that has that has been awe-inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've seen so many with clients, kind of just like the magic that comes when they just like align with it. I would say like one of the most important and personal ones is like how I was introduced to human design, because like it just wasn't on my radar. It was not even in my world. And like, I basically, as I mentioned earlier, I live in New York, and I was at a gathering, and there was just like a person that I was like, we were just like so curious about each other. He didn't even live. It wasn't romantic. It was just like, we've got something to learn from each other, And I ended
Cool.
up,
Gifts to exchange.
And I ended up being at a
That's what I like to
gathering.
say.
Yeah, I ended up being at a gathering with him, and he basically sat down and he's like, I'd like to look up your human design. I was like, I don't know what that is. And he basically looked at my human design, gave me like a mini reading, and then was like, I think that you should do this, and I think that we should build a business together. And it was just like this really,
Wow.
I know. He just like, and I did. I built a business with him for 2.5 years before I launched my own practice. And he was my first teacher. And like, it was just such a crazy out of nowhere invitation. And I remember him being so surprised. I didn't say yes immediately, but when I did say yes, because he's like, Erin, like, you don't really understand the system yet. Like, I can't believe you're saying yes. And I was like, it was just like at the perfect moment in my life where I'm like, it just makes sense. Like it's the bridge that I've been seeking. It's the bridge of like the practical with the cosmic. Like it just like I see the gold in it so much. And like it was really thinking back, I'm like, God, I really trusted myself there. Now I'm like maybe trying to control things a bit more, but I think it was really it was just really magical. And it wasn't always, a perfect journey, of course, because again, when we started, it was really early, human design's really taken off just in the past couple of years, but it really was such a, my strategy is about being recognized and invited in. And my first encounter with human design was like, you're meant to do this. Will you do it with me? And that really opened up so many doors. So it was really just and not, you don't need to be invited into everything in your life, but I think that I felt so invited into human design, and it felt so right even before I like had any clue where it was going to take me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a great example of when something, that which you seek is seeking you. You're wanting to find, the perfect time in your life, and it just sort of like,
I know.
Falls in your lap, right?
It's and I remember even like 6 months earlier, I was like working at a bunch of different startups, and I was just like, I really want to be like on the cutting edge of something. Like I want to, and it was just and I was like, I don't know what that is. I just feels like it's going to be a thing. And then like human design landed, and I was like, here it is, So just like
you
sometimes
can just feel it, right?
You can feel it. You just like have these. I love when you have the knowings, and it's like how it's all going to manifest and what form it's going to take and what it will be is like totally blank. But like the knowing is there, and I so felt that. And so when human design landed, I was like, it's revved.
I always think of these things as like, we all can relate to the idea that, oh, our past dictates the now moment, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious for most people. But something that is less considered is that, because time is illusory and, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in depth on the show, the future can affect the now the same way the past can affect the now. So for me, I feel really more and more sensitive to that. It's like, it's kind of like when you meet that person, you're like, I already know you. I mean, it's happened to me with a partner before. I'm like, look at the person. I'm like, you're my girlfriend. And I'm like, hold on, wait, I don't know you. Like, if I told you that, you're like, you're going to think, who is this crazy stalker guy? And, and then it plays out in traumatic fashion a year plus later. And, and so it's really interesting when that's something that's, all of this and all the incredible experience that you've had on this journey thus far is being felt in that moment. That
totally
past, quote unquote, past moment. And so you're like, yeah, that's me. Yep. 100%,
100%.
So I think that's a really interesting thing to perspective to look at it from.
Yeah, I love that, and I so feel that in that moment because I was like, I don't know how I'm just like going all in, but I was just like, every bone in my body is like, there's such expansion towards it. I just like know that I've got to. And I just love that knowing when it's like, I'll know why later, but now is not the time to know why. Now is the time to just like step in and discover it.
Yeah. So cool. Well, I think that's also so inspiring for people too, who are out there who haven't found that, they're at the startup saying, oh, I want to do something that's more cutting edge and more me and more, it's like when you are putting it out there in that way and you actually are in alignment with, you kind of get out of the way and allow the universe to, it's happened to me with a big part of my career journey was in an area I never would have anticipated going down, but I had the core intention of what I was seeking. Right.
Exactly.
And then it filled in the blank with, it's this industry in this way and this, so I think that's a really important lesson for people out there who haven't had that experience yet. It's a thing. And you're worthy of that thing too.
And I think also, when you understand and connect to your inner authority, if you're curious, that's a really powerful guide because that's going to be the thing that helps you know, like, this thing's right, this thing's not, don't know why, we'll find out why later. And so trusting that is really can be so magical when we really allow it.
Absolutely. Well, as we kind of wind down here, is there anything any question or thought or idea pertaining to all of this magic that you haven't asked the question that would have been a good one to ask, or just something that's, feels pertinent to share that we haven't discussed yet?
I mean, I think we've discussed so much. I think the last piece that I would share, and I think this is just why I fell in love with human design, is that I think we often get tripped up when we try to kind of walk a path that's not very authentic to us, whether it's like how we're building a business or how we're parenting or how we're partnering. And I think what human design does, whether or not you choose to embrace or explore the system, is that it reminds us that the path for each of us is totally unique. We're all meant to build businesses differently and market differently and parent differently. And the minute we like allow that, we find so much more success. And so I think just even that concept has been so useful. And then secondly, I think that it's really easy to kind of look outside of ourselves for answers in terms of like our friends or teachers, guides, gurus, and like whatever it is, like human design, whatever our authority is, human design keeps returning us to ourselves. So if somebody sits with me, they're like, what is my perfect job? And when will I meet my partner? I'm like, I don't have a clue, but I will let you know what container you'll thrive in most and how you'll know who that person is or like how they'll feel in your body. Like, so it just keeps returning people to themselves, which I think we need. And I think it's like, it reminds us that like, we are our greatest tool in assessing what's correct for us. And it's good to be reminded of like what that's going to look like for us uniquely.
I love that. It's like, I went to a class years ago, business related, and this guy spent a whole half a day on, how screwed up talking about the education system is, because we teach in the same way and expect all students, but we're actually
100%.
Completely different types of learners. And it's like decoding what the path is for you. It's like, I think it was Albert Einstein said, you tell a fish, that to climb a tree that he's dumb and he'll think he's ignorant his whole life. Something like that, right? It's like the fish isn't supposed to climb the tree. That's not its path. The monkey's good at that. And so once you start to realize, oh, hold on, there's all different types of ways to learn. There's, and what you said is so key, which is being authentic.
Yeah.
And I always say, in the future, if you want to know what the outcome is of actions you're taking, what is your intention? How authentic are you being? And if you can, take those two things and then also say, I'm gonna learn more about my own makeup and know thyself, right? That's the formula for success.
100%.
It's going to lead you somewhere good.
And I think it's really beautiful to trust that like being ourselves is going to be the thing that generates the most success.
Yeah. Yep. Of course. That's the cool thing. It's like there is something for everyone. There is a path for everyone that is so incredibly optimally fulfilling. There's enough room for everyone to have that experience. It's not special to the lucky ones or any of that.
Exactly.
That's absolutely not the case. It is an infinitely abundant universe and you deserve it. All of you out there listening. Yes. Yeah. This has been so awesome, Erin. Thank you so much for coming on. And once again, your website is just your name, ErinClareJones.com. Correct? Yep. And so you guys check it out if you want to learn more. Check out your chart. I do have one final question for you here, and it is this: in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Erin Claire Jones?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I think the meaning of life, no, I do know. For me, it's really about cultivating, for me, it feels like cultivating a deep trust in ourselves and like in each other and the world. To me, that feels like the journey that I'm on and that I think would serve all of us, bringing us together. I
will not argue with that. One of the keys in my new book, The Golden Key, is trust the mystery.
Totally.
And yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, thank you all for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into this episode and opening your incredible hearts to explore consciousness, the ultimate nature of reality. We are doing it. Erin, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom. This has been such a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Until next time, journey well. Love you so, so much. Also, quickly, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key, audio or ebook, as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the code POSITIVEHEAD. I also wanted to remind you that I will now be doing a live Q&A every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time on the new social audio app Clubhouse. I have really been wanting to connect and interact with all of you more for quite some time, and I'm super excited to now have 2 new ways to do it. First, if you're already on Clubhouse, be sure to follow me and click the little bell on my profile and select to always be notified when I go live on the Clubhouse app. And if you'd like to connect on an even more intimate Zoom gathering once a month, now you can do that too by registering at goldenkey.gift.